Awesome. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the podcast. Hope you're all doing well. As always, I am your host, Justin Harold. With me, as always, my co-host, Adam Issa. This is the Good Games Podcast, and today is just kind of like a casual day. Nothing, no real breaking news or anything. But me and Adam were hanging out the other day and started talking about games that we were playing. Both of them being in the same franchise. So
Well, I'm playing a lot of games, but
True. But I was playing a game that you were playing that was in the same franchise and
yeah,
everything. And so, we also drafted quite a few games in our draft that we did,
fantasy.
which we'll
Yeah,
talk about. But, it brought up some talking points, and we thought, well, might as well make a podcast episode out of it. So,
yeah.
but, Final Fantasy, huge game, has multiple titles. Honestly, Adam, this is going to be like a Q&A, and you're going to be our resident Final Fantasy expert. And
I don't know how much I can claim, but I played a lot of Final Fantasy, so
I'm just going to ask you questions basically that, I've only played the one. I've only played the remake of VII
Remake,
which, I'm playing right now. I'm trying to platinum it right now, and it's a phenomenal game and everything. But you've played quite a few more. You are playing currently. You have hopes for a game that, what is it? It's 16 that's supposed to come out this year.
16 is supposed to come out. 14 expansion is coming out for sure. So, well, it's getting announced, and it should come out this year. But yeah, so should I say what I've played?
Yeah, let's go with that first.
Well, so starting from 0, I've played 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, not 11, 12, not 13. I've played some of 13, not 14, a lot of 14, and then 15, and then 7 Remake and Tactics and Crystal Chronicles and a slew of other spin-offs. But yeah, I've played a few Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, a few more than me, of course, who has only played the remake. So, from what from what I know, Final Fantasy games are never the same. There's
for the most part,
unless they're like a direct sequel or prequel to.
But even then, it's always like X and X2 or 13 or 13.2. So it's never a mainline game is never linked to a direct sequel to another mainline game. Like even 11, which was an MMO, is not very much linked to 14, which is an MMO.
Yeah. And so, the story is usually the story, the setting, the characters, a lot of it is typically very different from, the previous game. Like 7 to 8 isn't the same. No cast, no similar story tells and all that.
There's icons who are always similar. So Shiva, Ifrit, Bahamut, like there's all those guys almost always show up. Yeah. And then are part of the story. And then obviously you got crystals and chocobos and all sorts of whack stuff happening all the time. But no, yeah, like for the most part, it's different. And then it's more like we get tiny elements, themes that are the same.
Yeah, and so, with me for Final Fantasy VII Remake, the only thing I ever knew about Final Fantasy before I played it was Cloud is probably the icon of the series, the most notable character outside of his rival, which is Sephiroth. And so, I wanted to ask you, you listed off the games that you've played, but is there someone within those games or someone outside of those games that you haven't played that comes into comparison to Cloud?
Nobody comes in comparison to Cloud. Cloud is like, I'd say far and away the biggest character in Final Fantasy, but there is characters like Tidus from 10 and Noctis from 15 who are pretty popular and have their followings and also powerful. I mean, when we're talking about powerful, nobody's even close to Noctis, I don't think. when we get down to it, he's kind of cracked. He's kind of goated on the sticks. But yeah, no, like the most iconic game is 7.
7.
And it's weird because like I think the one that has generated the most income is 15. So I was reading somewhere that like all of Final Fantasy up to 15 had generated like $14 billion or something like that, and then 15 had generated like $2 billion by itself, or something bonkers like that. So, I mean, we'll see. I'm also very interested to see this character in 16 because I have some interesting theories and am just excited to see how that plays out. But yeah.
What about, do you know the numbers on the remake as of right now in comparison to
Oh,
15?
I have no idea. I know it sold very good. The only thing, I mean, realistically though, it's like one is launching on just the PlayStation 4 and the other
Oh,
is
you're right.
yeah,
You're right.
15 is launching on the Xbox and the PC and the so yeah. I don't think it hit. I think 15 sold like something like 5 million copies in like 3 days or something like that, which is
Gotcha.
insane. So
Yeah.
yeah. But
So
yeah, long story short, Cloud is the most iconic character, and that's why he's the one in Smash Bros. Like again, if we're gonna look at like, oh, who's the most iconic character from Final Fantasy? Cloud's the one in Smash Bros.
yeah,
So
and now Sephiroth.
yeah, and now
Um,
Sephiroth.
so yeah, going along with just like talking about 7. So, this is the one that's got me willing to even try other Final Fantasies. I haven't of yet, but there's some on Game Pass that you have recommended to me. But personally, it's a really good game. Like
Yeah,
it easily like cracked my top 3 when I played it of
yeah,
like all-time favorite games. It was really interesting that like sometimes it takes me like a while to like decide like, all right, like this game is something that I'm going to come back to and still be really happy with. And just like the overall first time experience was super unique and super interesting for me. That being because I only played that one, but it's a
yeah.
remake of, a
7.
super like notorious game. And
Yeah.
so just how about you give us like, the experience of playing it as a person who played the original 7?
It was interesting. I think part of it is like it's weird because it's like I feel like it's 7 brought up to like what 15 was trying to do, with like more open world and making it modern and fresh and with the ARPG combat. But like ultimately, like there's such a deep reverence for the original in this game, but also it's not chained to the other game, which is I think what makes it most fascinating. The story in this game is like just really something shocking and surprising that I didn't think I'd see. It's like a but like what it feels like is like it's a warm blanket, it's like I love 7 like a lot, and then like getting to play this and I love 15 and getting to like enjoy it in a way um that is like new and everything's like, there's no translation errors and the combat's a bit more engaging, you could say. But like it's like again, like I don't I don't talk about the game as much, but like I have such a deep, profound respect for this game, and like it's easily I don't think it's one of my games that I'd be like, oh, it's the best game ever, but it's one of my favorite games I've ever played. I think it's just so enjoyable. If you like Final Fantasy, so that's I think the biggest part of it. Like I dig it.
Yeah, and so you knew how long the original one was? Did you like know, or did you expect them to kind of do like what's gonna happen with like it's gonna be like kind of like a
Well, they said it.
like the last? Oh, they did. They said
Yeah,
like it's
they were like this game's through Midgar.
okay.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, so it's like the first half of one disc. Because
Hmm.
it's 3 discs, the original. And Midgar is like the first half of the first disc.
That's so crazy, like to think about like one
But I
half.
also just don't think that that's like how the other games are gonna go. Like I
Yeah,
really don't. I don't think that it's gonna be like, oh, yeah, we're doing half a disc for each game. This game's not gonna be 6 games.
yeah.
Just realistically, like it's not going to be like it it's not going to be like a $1.2 billion endeavor, you know, because like these games cost 150, $200 million to make and ship and market. Like I just don't see that. I mean, 4 games, I feel like is high. Like I'm thinking 3 games, but
Yeah,
yeah,
well, you said 3 games in the
yeah,
past. I
I think
have
3.
no idea. Obviously,
Yeah,
you know, it's hard because like, I understand like, and this is we'll say here like there are probably going to be spoilers in this. We'll
oh
try not
yeah.
to like be too direct with them.
Sorry,
Maybe
sorry about the game that came out, 23 years ago, 24 years ago. Yeah,
true,
sorry.
true. I guess, but we're also going to talk about like maybe direct things from the remake, but you know,
If I think it's gonna spoil the remake, I probably won't say it.
yeah, well, just like the ending of this one is, you know,
Oh,
there's
I see. Yeah, yeah,
like a lot that happens, but it also kind of ends in like a like, all right, well, where is this going to go to next if we know there's going to be another part kind of
yeah.
thing, which I find interesting. I didn't realize that, you know, there was like when I first beat it, I was like, I didn't realize that there was going to be more to go on. I was just like, oh, well, all right then, because I thought at what happened at the end was what happened, and then
Yeah.
just they kind of go on their merry way or whatever.
No.
So very, very wrong,
No, no, no,
very
no,
wrong.
no, no, no,
Come and
no.
talk to you
There's
the day after and find out there's
quite a
quite a
bit,
bit more.
quite a bit more. There is a lot of character stuff that has to happen to everyone
Mhm.
involved. But yeah, like there's going to be a lot, and I'm not quite sure how. But I also think we're going to get this game in the next year or two. So,
Yeah.
like, I think it's going to come out in 2022, realistically. So, we'll see.
How often do they
2022.
release Final Fantasy games? Like
A
how
while,
often?
like 5-ish years.
Apart
Well,
from each other?
sort of. Well, I mean, so 14 was 2010 or 11,
Okay.
and then 15 was 2015. When was 13?
Remake was 2020,
Well, I mean,
2020.
I don't think remake counts.
No.
No, I'm yeah, and then well, so yeah, it depends, but like recently they've been taking a lot longer because 13 was 2009, and then 14 was like 2011, and then 15 was 2015, so that was a bigger gap. But then 16, I think this has like been the longest gap though without a Final Fantasy is like the gap between 15 and 16.
Why wouldn't you count the remake? Because how long is 15 compared to the remake of 7?
Much longer, like
Oh really?
much longer. There's just it's like a whole thing. The other thing is like it's the remake's not a new, like, you know, I don't know. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the remake's like a spinoff. It's not called Final Fantasy
Yeah, but I
16.
mean,
You know what I mean?
you still gotta make it just like any other game.
Yeah,
I
but I
mean,
mean,
the story might be there, but like you still gotta
and the
like,
character designs and like a lot of the art and the
well, like the
settings and
character
like
designs from like the original 7 compared to the remake
they're
is
almost identical.
drastic.
No, they're
But
almost
it's
identical.
but the models
Oh
of them are
yeah, I'm not, but I'm
drastic.
saying, but it's like let's just like pre-production is much
Mm-hmm.
shorter. The only reason it took so long to get Final Fantasy VII Remake out was because they just completely shifted developers.
Okay.
Like they restarted development midway through. I mean, I guess I get what you're saying, but like if you're asking me like what's the gap between Final Fantasy games, I'm thinking like what's the gap between 15 and 16? Because like 7 Remake is wonderful, but it's not 16. Like that's the it's not a
Yeah,
new story. Like that's why
I
it took,
got you.
yeah. Yeah, but yeah, like usually, I mean, there's almost always something Final Fantasy related coming out at any given time, whether it's music or Smash Bros stuff or Final Fantasy 14 stuff. Like I mean, that's why they wanted 14 is that like so people could spend time in Final Fantasy even when there wasn't a game, and it's worked out so far. So
Gotcha. So, tell me, is this is more like game related, like gameplay related? MP, that is that just magic points? Is that
yeah,
what that stands for?
yeah,
And so does it every game have magic essentially?
in some capacity.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
And is materia usually directly linked to
I
that
think
or is
Materia was in 7 was the first game that had it, and some games don't have Materia. Like I'm pretty sure 10 doesn't have Materia. 14 has Materia. Does 10 have materia? I can't remember.
What
That's why
is
I'm
like
replaying it.
the substitute for materia then?
Just like upgrades and skill points and stuff like that. Yeah, it always depends. Or just learning a spell. I know 15 doesn't have materia. 15 doesn't have any materia.
Okay.
Yeah. And I honestly I don't think 16 will have materia just based on what's going on in that game.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
What about so like this the setting for 7 slash the remake is like a weird like futuristic modern or not modern like
it's a
futuristic
dystopia. Yeah.
yeah industrial age type like setting, but for that trailer that we saw of 16, it's more of like a
Medieval.
yeah medieval kind of one like Game of Thronesy or whatever
Yeah.
you want to like kind of like equate it to. But what like how drastic are the changes like from because like I think the one that I like played a demo of, I don't know
Mhm.
when it was, but the one I played like a demo of, it's like it had cars and everything, and they were pretty like modernized cars and stuff.
Oh,
But
that's probably 15.
yeah, how
Yeah.
drastic are like the jumps from like those kind of themes?
Pretty drastic. Like you said, we've got um Final Fantasy 7 in Midgar and that whole area. And then we go into Final Fantasy 8, which is kind of similar. There's more cities and stuff. But then we go into Final Fantasy 9 and it's like super far past, like there's airships everywhere and it's like about that kind of thing. And then yeah, obviously that 10 is an interesting case that I'm not going to talk about because it's like the setting is kind of a spoiler. And then 11's like more medieval if I remember correctly. 11 I just have like I'm not familiar with it all because it was an MMO that's like not even out anymore, you know what I mean? But yeah, and then 12 is like the Zodiac Age, which is like there's like pirates and yeah. Okay, yeah, and then 13 is then again futuristic. So it's like it jumps.
Yeah,
And the guy who's making 16 also made 14 is like a known like he's like, "Oh, I want Final Fantasy to be more high fantasy and medieval." So
yeah.
that's a big part of why 16 is like that. And then yeah, 15 is almost more like modern times. Yeah, like or yeah, 15 rather. 15's yeah, I don't know if I said that. But 15's more like modern times. So every setting's different and they have their reasons for doing it in that setting, but like yeah, for the most part it's just it's a crapshoot in terms of oh, is it going to be future? Is it going to be now? Is it going to be far past? Is it going to be like far future? It's like it just depends.
So you said earlier that there are like some themes that kind of translate into each and every other game.
Yeah.
But so does that would that indicate like you're talking about like it's like jumps in times kind of. Do you think that all these Final Fantasy games take place somewhat in the same world, but at different times in different places?
I don't.
That's like a lore question.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure because I've never. It's hard to be like. Uh, one sec. Um, like I'm gonna go with no
No.
because ultimately I think the biggest thing is that like it's like oh we have oh god I just got an email it was really loud we have like similar things like Bahamut and the gods and all these things, but like all these places are like continent sized. So I don't like it's just not. Um, and I'm pretty sure like the original creators were like, yeah, the point is that everything's new and that we don't.
Yeah.
And if you and that's why the sort of like workaround is that oh, if you want to make another game in that universe, it's 10-2, it's 13-2, it's 7 remake part 2. So yeah, that's I think for the most part I don't want to, say something and then be like, oh, he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking. But I think for the most part, all of them are um, different. And I think maybe some of them are the same. I mean, like, obviously there's 7 and then there's Dirge of Cerberus and Crisis Core. So like those are all the same.
Those are the ones that are like prequels to
Yeah. So like though I
seven.
know those are like the same. And I also don't want to speak too much on the early games. So, but yeah, they're different.
Like the early games before 7, you mean?
Yeah, before like 6.
Okay.
Because like I've dabbled in 3, but not enough to. That's
Yeah.
a New Year's resolution of mine to go back and play all of them, but at some
Ooh.
point we'll
Ooh.
see. You can get them on your phone pretty easily, I think, or emulate them. So
Yeah.
they're
So
old.
so what do you think it was about 7 that like really kind of separated itself in popularity from the rest? Is it the
A couple
characters?
things. I think six broke into the West in like a way none of the other ones had. And then after that, it was I think it was just the setting and the characters are very instantly iconic, and the art. Nomura, I think that was the first game Nomura worked on, and obviously Nomura is like a big deal now. But yeah, he like designed the characters, did a lot of the art, and like Cloud was an instantly iconic character. I also think it was also the fact that it was the first like 3D game in a big huge way, and it redefined storytelling. It told a very complex story. But yeah, like it was the first big budget 3D game. Like that's a big part of it that people don't really talk. I mean, it looks like crap now, but like sort of. I mean, I still think it looks great, but like the art and everything looks great. But obviously, like the models and stuff are
Right.
they look like they're strung together. But yeah, um, yeah, like it was a first 3D game, and it gave the world a much bigger sense of like, oh wow, this is crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's a big part of it. But yeah, so
Gotcha.
6 laid the groundwork, and then 7 sort of exploded into that with it being innovative, and then the characters being recognizable, the design, all the design stuff being cool, and then just the fact that it told this like giant saga of a story that people like really latched onto.
Right. So, when we first talked about it, and even now, you said that, you didn't know if it was like one of your top favorite games or anything like that. Or like, it's
I
not
love
as
it.
highly as like I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
it.
yeah.
What was it for you that, was it because you had played
I played 7.
7?
I know so much of what makes that game great is like 7. Like
Mm-hmm.
like like that game is not special on its own, and that's part of it. And like it's using so much of what 7 gave it, which is fine. I mean, it's a remake. That's the whole point. But like that's a big part of it. Like I still think it's different, and obviously it's great, and it has its own things about it. But like again, the spark is still from the the original game, and that's why it's very hard when I look at remakes to be like, oh yeah. I think it's different when we're looking at something like Resident Evil, where it um like the original game's great, but
Mm-hmm.
this game is what they wanted it to be. Like remake 2 for RE2 remake. Like it's so much more moody, there's more and we finally get like the characters have faces, like it's like stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it's like I think that's a bit different, but I mean, I don't know, it's hard to it's pick
What's
and
like
choose and
another
blah blah blah.
remake? Have we seen another remake that compares to the two Resident Evil games that we've gotten and Final Fantasy remake? Can you think of anything? Because like I don't think I played a remake of anything.
Well, I think it's interesting because for the most part, I think this is like a Japanese thing. I think when people are like, "Oh, we want to go back and make the game better and different." Better and
Mm-hmm.
different is the biggest thing. Like better and different, not just because I think when American companies want to remake a game, it's just like, yeah, make it the same, but with better graphics and better. I mean, like look at Mafia, and like there's your answer. I think for the most part, the developers of the original don't want to approach something and just do it the same in Japan. Um, and that's inherently different, and I think that's what makes it different in terms of why we're like even talking about this in the sense that like they wanted to make the devs at Capcom wanted to make RE2 better and like more in line with what they actually had originally envisioned. And Nomura wanted to make, and the Square Enix people wanted to make Final Fantasy VII Remake because it would make money. And
Yeah.
Nomura was like, well, I see this as an opportunity to, make a new story, to tell a new story. And
It's
that's why.
it's actually interesting now that I think about it, because you're talking about Japan and everything. I thought about the Pokemon games. I
Yeah.
was like, all right, what's a remake game that they've made? They've done remakes, and they've done just like kind of like you get like Sun and Moon, and then you get Sun and Moon
Yeah.
Ultra or something like that. But
Yeah.
now we were on the Switch. They're on the Switch and everything, and so now they're making the older games into remakes. But for Pokemon is supposed to captivate like a younger audience, and still please the audience that it's had for the past 25 years. So people who have been with it for 25 years like may have kids now. So
Yeah.
Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee were easy sellers for people with kids and everything, even though the game itself isn't like, it's kind of annoying to play it in the sense that like, for someone who doesn't just like running around and catching every single Pokemon I have to get in order to like get XP, it was like, all right, I'm kind of done with this game after the
Yeah.
first playthrough. But now they're moving into the territory, especially with the 25th anniversary, that they're either going to remake the Diamond Pearl games, which will be the first remakes on the Switch, or they're gonna do digital ports of the original games to the Switch, which
Yeah.
I wonder. I'm expecting the Diamond and Pearl thing to be kind of like huge. Like it's gonna, it being it already having like its own, original game and everything. I'm wondering, and it technically, I think, like a lot of the earlier games like Fire Red and Leaf Green, they had yellow, or sorry, just red and blue, and then there was yellow, and then with what is it? There's Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and then there's the Suicune one, and these are all Game Boy games that they have 3 iterations of the game,
Yeah.
all the way to Ruby and Sapphire, and then you have Emerald. And usually the third game is usually just like it has something that's been added to it, like a legendary or like a little bit of a story. And Diamond and Pearl is the one that I can remember the most, where Diamond and Pearl is just Diamond and Pearl, but then you get Platinum, and Platinum has like an added on story to it, to the point where it's like extended, actual, like not DLC, but like extended content that you didn't really see in the other games. In the
Yeah.
other games it would just be like, oh, Rayquaza is now in the game,
Yeah.
or
It was one legendary in like a tiny new area.
right. And so I wonder, how much of remaking a game is just like, a money grab, and how much of it is it really just wanting to improve what it was. Because for me,
It's almost always a money grab.
right, right.
Like the decision to remake a game is a money grab inherently, and then
Hmm.
the only difference is,
But
is it like a Nomura who's making it?
right, but what is the, where's the decision to remake the game or just like remaster it?
I mean, remastering like Resident Evil 2 or Final Fantasy 7 is impossible, because it's like, why are you remastering something that like inherently will not hold up?
Right,
Like,
but now, and sorry, I'm
no,
not
no,
trying to
continue.
cut you off, but the Mass Effect trilogy is getting remastered.
Yeah,
But me and you both know that one plays like shit.
yeah, but that they don't want to spend the money to remake it.
Right. So like, what are we gonna get there? Are we gonna get just a buffed up kind of graphic look, or are we gonna
Yeah,
get, detailed kind of changes to the combat and to a lot of how the systems work within that game?
I don't want to speak too much about something I don't know, but honestly, I don't think we're going to see a ton of changes to, or I think they'd sell it on its own, but they
Yeah.
also know that it wouldn't sell
But then you talked about the
realistically,
Mafia game, you
But
know?
well, yeah, I know. I think Mafia is different because um I think number one, they were like completely forthcoming with the fact that they were remaking the original and only remastering the others. and
Mm-hmm.
the only remastering 2. Like they said it when they announced it. They're like, yeah, we're remastering 1. This is what it looks like, and or we're
Remaking
remaking
one.
1, and this is what it looks like. But also, they didn't really change any of the combat. They didn't change any of the stuff. They added some content.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're remastering 2, and you saw what the remaster of 2 looked like. And my point is like remasters aren't really anything to get that excited about. I mean, the thing is, it's like I just don't see them selling 3 games for $60 if they're actually putting in work to remake one of them, which is ultimately why I think when we get Mass Effect 1, everybody's just not going to play it for the most part, because they're going to play the first couple missions. They're going to see that, oh, it's 1080p, but it still looks like not good, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to play good because they didn't do anything to it. I hope to be proven wrong, but like,
Right.
yeah, ultimately, I think the difference is when a game's so old that remastering it is like, what? That's when it's like, okay, it's time to remake it. And I think that part of it was like that with Mafia. If you remastered the original Mafia, it's like, okay, like, um, this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't look good. It won't look good. It won't play good. Like, so they had to remake that,
Mm-hmm.
although it still plays similar. And I think with Final Fantasy VII and the first Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, it's like, well, those games now play differently entirely, and those uh what am I trying to say? And like they needed to be remade because like graphically there's just no way that they can hold up in any way. So that's I think a huge part of it is like, but yeah, when it comes down to it, who's like, oh, we're remaking / remastering these games? It's an executive who's like, we can make more money this way or this way.
Yeah.
And it's never the creative person. The only difference is like when we get a good remake that changes stuff and adds new stuff versus when we get a bad remake is when we have somebody who is like on the original dev team who, of course, the executive is like, we have to have them here or nobody will buy the game. You know what I mean? Or,
Mm-hmm.
we have to, then they're like, yeah, we're changing things. We're adding things. Like that's when it becomes different, is when we have a creative person involved who wants to iterate on their work and change their work in a meaningful way. So,
So in terms of let's talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake and the Resident Evil ones. Is there much? I don't know. I can't speak to any of these games, the originals. Is there a lot of differences in the Resident Evil 2 and 3 games in terms of like story or anything, or no? Because I mean, with Final Fantasy
not
VII
really.
Remake, me and you have already talked about it. That those are, there's story beats that are different, and situations that are different, but not to the extent that it's not familiar.
Yeah. No, not really. The story's all the same for the
Yeah.
remakes, but the difference is like those games were uh, those games were ahead of their time in the sense that they could never get fully what they wanted to do. Like 7 accomplished what it wanted to do. It
Mm-hmm.
told its story. But like Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, while still considered great games at the time, never got to be what they were intended to be, which is why the remakes were like, if you're going to ask me which is better, I'm going to say Resident Evil 2 remake. And
Mm-hmm.
that's because like I ultimately think that game is better than the original and has a different like vibe and life than the original. And like I don't necessarily I think I can say that about Final Fantasy VII remake, because it's like it's weird because it's like I'm only getting a third of it. So it's like,
Right.
what do I even do here? Like, so that's ultimately the weird little
Yeah.
sticking point.
I'm trying to think right now. If you had a game like from the past that you wanted to remake, would it make sense? And what game would it be? Because the only game that I could, put a finger on and be like, and you know what, would it be a remake like Final Fantasy VII where there's things changed about the story a little bit, or
Yeah.
would it be kind of just like Resident Evil where they kind of just achieve what they wanted gameplay wise with it? Because the only game I can think that I would maybe stick with the final, or not the Final Fantasy, the Resident Evil kind of way of
I think
remaking games.
really quick, I think the Final Fantasy one is like incredibly rare because Final Fantasy is like the only one to do it. Most of them, well, and also the remake, the RE2 remake is incredible. For the most part, remakes are just the same game built from the ground up.
Mhm.
So yeah, like just continue. I just wanted to make note of like
Yeah,
there's like no games where they remake them and then they're like, oh, they're changing the story. That's exclusively a Final Fantasy VII remake thing,
yeah.
almost. So yeah, continue. Sorry.
The only game that I could think of that is that old and it plays a lot like, kind of like it didn't age well, kind of like the Mass Effect game,
Yeah,
is Dragon Age Origins,
interesting.
where like they just Dragon Age Inquisition it, almost. They just
See, I would agree, but then it's like we have Inquisition, which is
right.
just a better game.
But it's like it's kind of like my argument for Mafia. It's like
Yeah, that's fair.
for people who really love like Dragon
Dragon Age.
Age,
Yeah.
they're probably like, man, Dragon Age is probably the best one out of all of them, but it plays like shit.
Yeah.
So like, let's get a remake out of it and kind of
Oh, Dragon Age,
rebuff.
not Origins. You said Origins. I just wanted to make sure.
They're the same game.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like Dragon Age Origins like is the first game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Continue.
Did you think I meant like the whole genre when I said Dragon Age?
Yeah, I was like, what? I was like, huh? What's going on? I was like, are we remaking all of them?
No,
I was like,
no. I'm sure people
yeah.
would want 2 to be remade a little
Yeah.
bit, but no, just the original because
Yeah,
of
okay.
how it looks and everything. Because
Yeah.
that game's pretty insane with all the places you go to and everything that goes on within that game. So you got anything?
I don't know. I mean, they remade Resident Evil 2 and they remade Final Fantasy 7.
What about a PlayStation exclusive game? Because there's one I can think of PlayStation
I mean,
exclusive wise.
like,
I think
I
I
get-
told you this.
I guess the only one that like I think could be remade is like Metal Gear. Like I'd be interested in seeing a Metal Gear remake, but I
Okay.
also think that that's coming. So like I don't want to be like, oh,
Oh,
I'm a wizard. No, I legitimately think Blue Point's probably working on that.
okay.
And I don't like it's just tricky because like honestly I think the games that need to be remade are older than like early 90s or like
Mm.
older than that, and then when we get there it's like okay, well that's Mario, Donkey Kong, Final Fantasy, and like other than that
A very select few.
yeah, like that actually could do it. I mean, I'd be interested in seeing another Final Fantasy game be remade in this style. I'd be okay with that, honestly, because like I think it's tricky though because I do like turn-based combat.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, 8 would be cool to be remade. I don't know. Point is,
We live in
Yeah,
a time where
exactly.
we're moving into the next gen, though. So I wonder,
Yeah.
how many more games are we going to get remastered? How many more games are we going to get?
I would just prefer new games at this point.
Yeah. Well, like
Um,
for me, I already know that. Not like, and they don't even have to, not like even like remakes, but like there's going to be, like Xbox One and PS5 enhanced edition games that I
yeah,
don't know that we're gonna have to pay for, or like if we're gonna, if you have like
yeah,
proof of owning the game already and you get like a discount or something. But like I know with The Witcher 3, I'm getting that sometime this year. Am I gonna have to
yeah.
pay for that again, or like what's gonna go on with that?
I hope not.
Yeah. So
Like I don't know. I ultimately I think maybe a game like if I wanted a game to be remade, it'd probably be something like Donkey Kong Country, where the models just didn't look that good, and we could get it in the style of Tropical Freeze, or maybe Super Mario 64. It's one of those two. But I also just like why devote resources to that when you can just make a new Donkey Kong or Mario game? And that's ultimately where I come up against like a sticking point is like I don't want any more games to be remade unless they're Resident Evil or Final Fantasy, because it's like, and even then, I don't want any more Resident Evil games to be remade.
right, because the
Unless
next
you were
one's
doing like
4.
why, which is like why,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like 4 still is just,
Right.
it. Actually, there's one game that I think could do well with a remake, and that's probably Devil May Cry 2, because that game's bad.
Mm.
And you should remake bad games from good franchises to make them better. Like I think that would be, actually, I'm sticking with Devil May Cry 2. But yeah, I mean, I'm just at the thing where it's like, don't remake any more games unless you're Square and know what you're doing, because it's
Yeah.
like Chrono Trigger would be a good one, but yeah, ultimately it's like I just don't see the point when you can make a new game. Like we're gonna get 16 and we're still gonna get 7 remake, and that's the difference. But and we're still getting Resident Evil 8 and we're still getting the remakes, but like at what point when I'm like, oh, they're remaking a new 3D Mario, do the resources take from like an Odyssey 2, which I'd much rather see. So it's like that's the thing for me.
Right.
So nothing and everything.
Everything. I got you. Well, I don't know. I don't really got anything else. We kind of diverged from the whole talking about Final Fantasy into talking
Listen,
about like remakes.
you didn't even
which is
ask me what
perfectly
I was
fine.
playing.
Well, yeah, true. But we can't really talk about that because only you would be able to talk about that.
That's
But
not
what
true.
are you talking about? What are you playing?
Dude, I'm playing everything. But
You said
mostly I'm
that
playing
already
Doom
though.
Eternal. But
Playing
mostly
Doom
I'm playing
again.
Doom Eternal. And let me tell you, Doom Eternal, oh, I should have put it higher in my year-end list, because the iteration, the complexity of the combat,
Where did you put it? You had it like in the top
I
3,
had it like
didn't you?
4. Should have
3
been
or 4.
probably 2 or 3. Now that I think about it. But like realistically, that game is so good. It's so hard, but it's so hard in a way that very few games are, where it's not frustrating. It's like when you die, it's wholly on you. It's wholly on your ability to not perform, because the game telegraphs everything so clearly at you. But oh my god, it's just so brilliant. Like the designers at it are so special. They're doing something so special with these two Doom games, in the sense of like, oh, it's it's we have these mechanics that each do one thing, and that it's so bare bones, right? We have these tiny mechanics or enemies that each do one thing, but every time we add a small thing or add these enemies here or do this, it changes everything so drastically. And they just mix and match it. It's like they have this little sandbox, and all the AI is so good. It's like everything's polished to the perfect sheen, where they can literally just be like, oh, this here plus this here plus this is something insane, but we take this away and we add a new thing and add another thing. And it's like, they're brilliant. I will play anything they make except for Rage, the first one.
Did you get the Rage that we talked about?
2, Rage 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it was on Game Pass. I played a
that?
little of it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's fine. It's not Doom.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
It'll never be Doom. But yeah, Doom. But like I've literally been playing it on Ultra Nightmare and getting my ass kicked. But like there's, which I don't know if you know what Ultra Nightmare is.
It's almost like permadeath, probably.
Yeah, it's the hardest difficulty in the game, and then if you die, you reset to the start of the game. And let me tell you something. Like I don't have the patience for that, but I have it for Doom, because it's like you see yourself improving so much and you love it, and it's so brutal and hard, but it's so fun. And like no game has that. No game has that. Like very few games have that. So
The Last of Us
man,
Part 2.
Last of Us Part. I mean, not just the setting. I'm talking about like you like die and you like are like, okay, I'm going back in, and I love it. I if I died and grounded on Last of Us Part 2, I wouldn't do it again.
Yeah.
That's just because like that game has 3 hours of cutscene. Like, the first 3 hours of the game are like 2 hours of cutscenes. So like I just wouldn't want to do that. But yeah, like Doom Eternal. Damn, I'm playing Final Fantasy 10 again, and 14, and Smash Bros, and TFT. Playing TFT and League. I've just been juggling my time. But yeah, man, play Doom Eternal. Everybody play Doom. We want a third game. I mean, there's going to be a third game. It's going to be Xbox exclusive.
Oh, yeah, that's true. When are we going to get the next Fallout game? Never. Don't say that, please.
Never.
Please don't
Never,
say that.
unless it's from Obsidian, I hope.
There's a game that people wanted to get remastered / remade is New Vegas.
Yeah.
I think they just wanted to get remastered. But
yeah, no, I don't want another Fallout game unless it's from Obsidian.
Yeah.
So no,
That's
but
fair.
I mean, realistically, again, I say never, but I mean like 10 years. because we have
For
Starfield,
me, oh,
and then we have
oh,
Elder Scrolls 6,
no,
and that's the team that does the Fallout games. So it's like,
yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't be
it'll be a while,
surprised. I wouldn't be
maybe a
surprised
minute.
if we got Obsidian to do it because I mean they're both owned by Microsoft now, so why
Yeah,
not? But then again, they're working on Avowed and Outer Worlds 2 and another
well, they still
IP
got to
that they have
release
no
a
idea.
second DLC.
But they're still working on Outer Worlds too.
Yeah,
Like that. I mean, that's just what the rumor is inside. So the point is, I think Fallout does not have a spot, in
the lineup right
time,
now.
in
Yeah,
time for quite a while, which is why I think they made 76 so that they could keep releasing content for it. I just don't think it went well. Although, from what I hear from people who play it, it's like decent now. They've got NPCs. It's like a real like
you
it's a
played it.
lesser Fallout game. I played it a little
Played it
bit.
on stream.
Yeah. No, but I played it before they added all the cool stuff, I guess. But yeah, no, there's
Almost right before, I think, too. Like
yeah,
I
I
think you
know.
were
I was
right before they did that.
good. But yeah, no, yeah, from what I hear, it's fine. It's a lesser Fallout game, but it's more of a
Yeah,
Fallout game now than when it launched. So I mean
yeah,
that's just it. This is just it, right? Every game just wants to launch bad and then become good, from what I understand at this
yep,
point.
yeah.
Like
Not wrong.
yeah. Well, oh yeah. That very
I
much
thought that's
so.
what you. I
Very,
thought that's what you were
very much.
hinting
I mean,
at.
I was hinting at it, but I just didn't want to say it.
Nah, I got you. I got you.
Real quick, any games under the radar games that we didn't talk about last week that you got your eye on? I'm always gonna do
Well,
this every week. Just see if you have anything's come on your radar.
Outriders just got pushed back to April, which I
Oh,
was
did it?
I was interested in.
Okay.
So, but they're gonna do a demo. They're gonna have like a demo in February, I think, is what
Okay.
it said.
That's cool.
There isn't anything that's like. I was thinking since I drafted it, I was thinking about getting Hitman 3. Um,
I have already pre-ordered it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But besides that, I'm just currently going back through some of the top games. I'll probably play Ori at some time, both Oris because I have to play them in order. I can't just go out of order. But I've just been going back and trying to platinum games right now. So I started with
Yeah.
Remake, but I don't want to get behind on doing platinums. Mainly because I know that after like in March, I think we'll start getting kind of packed with games again. Is what I
What's
think.
going on in March?
That's when Star Wars is supposedly supposed to come out.
Supposedly coming out. Yeah.
And then we still have to hear about Gotham Knights and the Hogwarts game, and we need. I was about to say DLC. There needs to be dates that come out in like the next 3 months. Oh, and then February is when the anniversary of Pokemon happens. So I'm expecting like them to drop something on the day game wise.
Something small. Maybe
probably,
Pokemon Snap.
Yeah, maybe that slightly upset me just because I'm not like huge into Snap. Detective Pikachu 2 is a rumor.
True.
The ports is a rumor. And then the thing that I could most likely think of being like a big time drop for them is that they just drop another DLC for Sword and Shield.
Sword and Shield, yeah.
But besides that, nothing really. Anything coming out soon for you besides Hitman 3?
No, just Hitman, and then honestly, there's no dates anywhere, so it's like,
right.
The next thing is May.
Yeah.
The next day we have is in May, so it's like, obviously, I know that's not true. Like, there's going to be games that come out, but
yeah, I don't know that we probably shouldn't put it off too much longer. But do you think there's going to be E3 again? Do you think we're going to get E3 this year?
E3 the show or what we had last year? Because it's going to be
E3 the show.
Yeah, it's going to be what we had last year.
Okay, so you think there's just going to be like Xbox event and PlayStation event and
100%. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, PlayStation was done with E3 even before E3.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and Xbox is like
EA. And
it's cheaper to make this here with us, and now they have Bethesda, so it's like, well, whatever. But and Bethesda was like big enough to have their own show, so now it's just the Xbox show just got better. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, and what I ultimately think is going to happen is we're going to get an Xbox event, and it's going to show Starfield, and everybody's going to freak out, and I'm going to be one of the people who freaks out.
I'm looking forward to seeing what EA's next Star Wars game is, because they gotta have something for this year.
Fallen Order 2. No. I don't think that
Hey,
comes out this year, but that is assuredly in the works.
you think it's the same cast? We've talked about this before.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna be more Calcast. I think we're probably gonna get 2 or 3 games, and he's gonna bite the bullet at the end of them, and be dead and gone.
I gotcha.
Rip our red-headed Jedi.
Well, that's it. You got anything else before we sign off?
Yeah, play Doom and Doom Eternal are on Game Pass. Both of them, because Bethesda was bought by Microsoft. In case you didn't hear, of course you heard.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's where we're gonna call it. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for a lot of the comments on the Cyberpunk video that we did. It's probably the one that we got the most views on and everything. But I do appreciate those comments. I do respond to a lot of them. And if you guys do listen, even if you're just like a regular listener, feel free to just comment on the video and let us know what's up. But besides that, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.